your insurance company is State Farm. You're still dealing with the original adjuster. He's getting credit one way or the other by closing that original file with you, but he's still the adjuster that's assigned to your claim, so to speak. And he's like, are you happy with this? Are you happy with this? And your answer is always like, yeah, I'm happy with this, but I still need more for this, which is good, because you need to take that as far as you can with him until he says no individually on every item just about, or as much as you can stomach, okay? But at some point, you're never saying, yes, I'm okay with it. Yes, I accept, I agree to your settlement. That's not what you're saying at all. Instead, what you're saying is, look, I don't know if it's okay. I don't know if I agree to it. I don't know any of that, right? But I'll tell you what, go ahead and send the check, right? Send the check, send the money that's associated. Go ahead and send what you got, send that estimate. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to attempt to follow your prescription. That's my job, is to carry out, okay, perform all the repairs that are prescribed by you, okay? Unless and until I cannot. So we're here looking at your house, and it's been totally destroyed by fire. And after it happened, your insurance company, State Farm, they basically coordinated you with their vendor, emergency services company, yes, Mitigation company, and they came out and basically gutted everything, took out all the wet stuff, which a lot of it, you know, for anybody familiar with fires, a lot of it's water damage is what it turns out to be from the fire department, but they knocked holes in windows and the roof ceilings to do ventilation and such, so it caused a lot more damage. But we have this original hardwood floor that was underneath laminate, in which, by the way, you just did a ton of renovations yourself, and everything was just newly remodeled when this happened. And oh, how did it happen again? It was an electrical fire?
Right.
And you escaped with your life, thank God. And were you able to get like most of your personal things out, that like real important stuff, like documents or anything? Did you able to save stuff?
Yeah.
Thank God for that too, man. Like pictures and things like that.
Right, yeah. Not all of them, but
You still ended up losing things. Jeez. So, but they came out, the original adjuster, field adjuster, wrote you an estimate, and significant estimate, especially when you first look at something like that. A lot of pages to it, right? Significant dollar amount, and then you start to really scrutinize it further.
Right. Yeah.
And you see that it's missing a lot of items, right? And specifically, you know, and you somehow, you found my YouTube channel? Somehow you were looking.
Yeah, I did research.
You got my YouTube channel and you started looking, and I think you said you watched a whole bunch of videos on there, and you.
Right. Yeah.
And so.
Myself.
Yeah, and so you went to the adjuster on your own, yep, and you pointed out a whole bunch of items that you came up with, item by item, and he issued you another check and revised his estimate and issued you another check.
I told him that I'm not happy with the estimate. That
Right. Right.
It wasn't fair
Mm-hmm.
enough. And I told him that I'm gonna come up with my own estimate. And
But not at first, though. First, you got him to send you another check.
no, I had to talk to him.
But you didn't have to give him an estimate to get the second check.
No estimate, and he asked me what I'm not happy about.
Got it,
I
got
said,
it.
You know, there are things that needs to be added as a replacement, and this was just basically just a walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, not official, just to come and say,
Little
you know
chit
what?
chat.
I am not upset with you. Of course, at the beginning I was, but I was just, I'm just gonna get my own estimate.
You were real
You know, and
professional with him,
yeah. So
courteous.
I remember there were only two.
Like you weren't yelling and screaming at him and calling him names.
No. So at the beginning he had, for example, 2 windows, right, on the estimate, and it's these over here that were cracked because of the heat, and from 2 it was added another 6 more.
Mm-hmm. Just from having that little chit chat.
Right.
Imagine that. how that works out. Okay, so he added that, added some other things.
This is something that he said he's gonna do it without me writing an estimate. And then I appreciate what he did. He took his time, you know. He was.
And you had some stuff on the outside too that you showed him, didn't you, at that time? Didn't you say at that time, like, or was that later? You had like, because you have some stuff out here.
The gutters were damaged. I showed him that too.
You have this special facade, these tiles, like a mosaic tile almost. But they're like a stone, like a faux stone tile sort of thing that you have everywhere that you just had put on. Your driveway sustained a bunch of damage to it. Your porch sustained damage. But he took a look at various things, right? Like your I think it was a furnace issue, right? It was the furnace, and he said, yeah, we got an issue with the furnace. But the fireplace, you were like, look, this fireplace is gonna have a lot of issues. And he's like, you'll be all right. But he wrote you a significant estimate, right? Like he went back and revised his estimate and then added more money to it, right?
Yes.
Got it. And that was just by you having that talk and meeting with him and educating yourself on your own. And a lot of the things that he had, like back here is where you have a lot of your cabinets. You could see how nice they were and some of your doors and trim. But a lot of the items that he had, he didn't put enough of a grade on it, like standard grade, average grade, when it was supposed to be premium grade and things like that.
He had like high grade for the kitchen cabinets, but
They should have been premium,
when
custom.
you're not professional, for you it's premium high. It's like, okay, it's high grade.
Right. Exactly.
Right, but for example,
Because you're not doing this every day. You do a different
the high grades
business.
don't have like the moldings on top or the bottom of a cabinet. You know, that makes it into a premium grade because they're.
And actually, yours was more of a custom. You know, they also have custom deluxe grade also. Okay, so and then you told him you were going to get an estimate together. I helped you do an estimate. We did a lot of stuff on the estimate, which was like bid item, where we put an item on there, but we said zero for the dollar amount because we're just letting them know, like, we have to deal with this, you know, but we have a strategy for coming back there. But he added some more items, not nearly satisfactory what we'd like him to do, but this is still the original State Farm adjuster.
Right.
So then he's added money now 2 additional times. So he's paid money 3 different times. He's revised his estimate twice. He has 3 versions of the estimate. We've got this draft. This one says draft on. Did a check come out with this one? Because it says,
But I haven't received it.
because probably it says draft, I would assume. But so this is his most recent estimate.
Correct.
Because you had that estimate submitted to him. He sent you some more money with it, right? And then you guys had another meeting?
No, but I am.
You talked
trying
again.
to, you know, for the subfloors, if you can notice the cut areas.
Right.
You know, it was.
And so just
Something
we
to
were,
use the saw.
and we were talking about this a little bit before, but just briefly, like, and he's saying, you know, he doesn't want to cover like water spots on your subfloor, for instance, because he could see by looking at it that it happened years previously from maybe like windows or maybe from a plumbing issue or maybe, who knows. So what he said to you was, well, if you want us to cover that, you're gonna have to open up a separate water damage claim. And if you did that, we were talking about this earlier, if you were to do that and open up a separate water damage claim, you'd have to deal with a new adjuster that comes out here brand new, and they look at that as a water damage. And the first thing they want to know is, when did it happen? And just by looking at it, it's probably years and years ago. So it's probably more than likely outside of the coverage area when you would have had to have reported it, denied, right? And so, but you don't have to do that because you've got, we mentioned 2, 3, 4, I think, pieces of ammunition where your policy without delving too far into policy and coverage. But part of insurance repairs is that if you have the coverage, when you've established that you do, you have ordinance and law coverage, that's building code upgrade coverage. That just means that everything you do here has to comply with the law, with the local building codes and the law. And so part of the local building code that they have adopted, the version of the building code that they have adopted says that you cannot put down any kind of flooring like that over top of framing that's water saturated or water soaked. So that would be a violation of building code. Another building code establishes that you have to comply with manufacturer instructions. So any of your laminate flooring or hardwood flooring is going to say you cannot, we're not going to warranty this, and our instructions says do not go down over any surface that's not dry, right? So you're violating against the manufacturer's instructions there, right? So it's a lot like we talked about, like if you had a wind damage roofing claim, your shingles, and the adjuster said, yeah, we're going to approve new shingles, like remove your shingles and replace them. But underneath the plywood, the decking shows big rotted out water spots. Well, they don't cover rot, and they don't cover like termite infested, things like that, infestations. They don't cover things like that, termite damage. Certain things that they don't cover, right? But rot, right, is not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that the building code requires that you cannot put down shingles on top of water-soaked underlayment or water-saturated decking, right? So there's a couple of different building codes that would prevent you, and also the manufacturer instructions from the shingles would say you can't do that, right? And that's a couple of pieces of ammunition there, but also then from there, outside of the ordinance and law coverage, the building code stuff, you also have what's considered consequential damage, which may not make a lot of sense to you not being in the industry, and that may go right over your head. You're like, well, what's that supposed to mean? Consequential damage in the industry, which would be perfectly receptive to any inside desk adjuster at your insurance company, okay, is the term consequential damage means that in order to get to your prescription, the repairs that you have prescribed, Mr. Adjuster, this other item is in my way. In order to make those repairs, I would have to deal with this item first, and so that would be considered consequential damage. And the other thing that we talked about, I just want to recap, is that your insurance company is State Farm. You're still dealing with the original adjuster. He's getting credit one way or the other by closing that original file with you, but he's still the adjuster that's assigned to your claim, so to speak. And he's like, are you happy with this? Are you happy with this? And your answer is always like, yeah, I'm happy with this, but I still need more for this, which is good, because you need to take that as far as you can with him until he says no individually on every item just about, or as much as you can stomach, okay? But at some point, you're never saying, yes, I'm okay with it. Yes, I accept, I agree to your settlement. That's not what you're saying at all. Instead, what you're saying is, look, I don't know if it's okay. I don't know if I agree to it. I don't know any of that, right? But I'll tell you what, go ahead and send the check, right? Send the check, send the money that's associated. Go ahead and send what you got, send that estimate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to follow your prescription. That's my job, is to carry out, okay, perform all the repairs that are prescribed by you, okay? Unless and until I cannot, okay? So, but you have to understand, brother, the sooner you get that adjuster off the file, the better. And when you get to that point where you say, okay, I'm basically going to leave you alone. I'm going to stop making you revise your estimate every 5 minutes, right? Send the money you got, and I'm going to go ahead with construction. That's the key here. You're moving forward with the repairs, okay? So out here, we need to have a dumpster. We need to have, you know what I mean? So you've got some temporary fence. We need to set up a job site, right? Start to take care of all the things that can be taken care of. Any other demolition, any other, start to take care of it. So we said we got to get a structural engineer. You've done that. You've gotten them out here. You've had a meeting with them. The adjuster said they didn't want to pay for the crawl space water damage and debris and toxic materials that were left over from the fire, from everything being gutted out in the water, right?
Which is
house wrap, a lot of different things.
Very important.
But first, the crawl space, they didn't want to cover that because, and he said, well, you would have to have an expert to come out and test everything, right? And we talked about mold. Everybody's worried about mold, right?
He said you need to hire a hygienist.
Right.
Okay, I said, why do I need to hire a hygienist? Why don't you hire a hygienist? He said, well, if you want it, you
But my advice to you was what? Hire a hygienist, right?
And, yeah, but I gave him the option, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I went and took my time.
And talk to 3 hygienists, right?
No, 10.
10? 10?
3 out of 10, right.
Nice.
I want to make sure they are certified.
Because when they do the test, okay, to determine are there moisture levels, are there lead, is any hazardous materials at all for humans at all, right? You bring the documented proof back to the insurance company, and then it's like, look, the adjuster was right, because the adjuster's not qualified to make that determination. It's not in their title. They're not that expert, right?
They are doing it.
But they are doing it, but they're not qualified to. Hold on, they're not qualified to. You're not qualified to, right?
Well, I understand.
So, but what you did was you went to the qualified person, and then presented it
And
to them.
then what happened?
Tell me.
Before I asked for a quote, just to be ethical.
Yes.
So I sent him the quote. He says, you know what? The people that we work with, the companies that we work with, I can recommend them to come and, do the testing.
Right.
Because you had the option to do it.
You said you're too late because you had the option to do it.
At the beginning, I asked him, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Right? And then,
Yeah. Why I have to do this? I mean, you're the
I
adjuster.
started to do
Yeah.
this, and then now you're trying to take control and you're trying to do it. I'm sorry, I'm playing a game. My time is important to me.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's what they don't.
So until today,
Respect.
they've been taking control. They had the control until today. The restoration company, demolition, my personal property, they controlled everything.
Yeah.
And for example, the demo company they used,
The mitigation company. Yeah.
right, they did extra harm, right? They could have done extra, they could have taken 3 more days to do it,
Yeah.
but they did 3 days early.
But see, and that's what, and they're resisting because the mitigation company technically has the obligation to make the air clean. Okay, so like honestly, in my mind, if I'm the mitigation company, I would have sealed all the framing with the odor control shellac, because now you have that in your estimate, and he's pushing back, and he's like, you got to get tested, you got to get tested. So
we treated it already.
But that's odor control. They cleaned it supposedly because they charged for cleaning. We don't know how well they cleaned it or not. But the CIH, Certified Industrial Hygienist, can make that determination to determine, does it need to be sealed? In my mind, it has to be returned to its pre-loss condition, and there could be no trace of any smoke odor. You see what I mean? So that, to me, I'm just talking about big picture strategy, right? Like we get real down on the micro details if we want to, but we've done that a lot, you and I. The thing is that you bring all of the documentation from the experts that are more qualified than any of those adjusters. But here's what I want to get to. You got to get to the point to where you get that guy off of the deal, okay? I'm moving forward with construction. So what happens is that he's removed from the file, okay? And so all you have to do then is you go to the inside desk adjuster, you call the 800 number, not his number, but you call 800 number, you go through the prompts, you put in your claim number, and anybody who answers is a licensed adjuster with more authority than that guy has. And so what it is then is like, look, I'm calling claim number this and that, I'm the owner, right? And here's my issue. And then they pull up the claim. They pull it up. They pull up the adjuster's photos and documentation and paperwork and notes and logs and estimates and also your documentation, anything that you submitted in. But then you're like, look, so your adjuster said this is the prescription. I attempted to follow the prescription. I located an expert on my own time, brought them in. Their report said this, here's the report, and here's the estimate to make it right, and I'm requesting of you to go ahead and approve that. That adjuster, from where they sit, can manipulate and change the estimate, and when they make the change to the estimate and finalize it, like we talked about, simultaneously a check is printed from another location and sent. So if it didn't work out with that person you're talking to, and we were joking earlier, like you could literally call them up when they answer, you're like, hey, where are you at right now? And they're like, yeah, I'm in Jacksonville. Like, oh, how's the weather there? And they're kind of cranky. They're like, come on, get on with your thing. oh, you know what? Something came up, I have to get back with you. And you hang up and literally call back. The next guy answers like, hey, where you at? I'm in Dallas, Texas. How's the weather? Oh, it's just gorgeous here. How can I help you? That's how we can work. And then deal with that part. If it doesn't work out, hang up and try back later. Say, hey, listen, I talked to an adjuster before. They said I should do this. I tried to follow that prescription, was unable to. Here's why. Here's the documentation. You always present the documentation, the proof, right? Make it real simple for them, because that's all they care about. Because in their mind is, their job's already done. I've got everything I need to approve this request because here's the documentation, any documentation that covers my ass. CYA is such a rule that's followed in the industry. So I just think every time, like, some people say, Chad, how many times do you have to supplement it? As many times as it takes. So it's already been revised twice. 3 payments totally has gone out. I don't care if there's 29 more times because the claim's never going to be closed and done until all the repairs have been made and they've been paid for. As far as I can tell, no repairs have even started. On the reconstruction side anyway, on the mitigation side, yes, but dude, we can go at them 100 more times if I'm you, right? And say, look, I tried to do this, the cabinet maker came out and said I can't. You know what I mean? I tried to do this. I went to get the light fixture that said for this, and just the cost of it is too much.
I got contractor friends. They can come and do it.
That's great.
We have contractors network.
But
They can come
who are you talking? Who said that?
My adjuster,
Which adjuster?
field adjuster.
The original field adjuster, right?
Yeah.
Case closed. It's irrelevant now. Until, like, you get more money out of them if you can.
And
If
the
you
way
see,
they're suggesting
listen,
to the
if you see easy items that you know he's kind of on the fence about, that he's willing to give to you now, like those couple things we talked about earlier, get them from him. Say, hey, buddy, I went and did the legwork. I talked to the experts. Can you prove this? Can you prove this? Get more money from him, but then cut him loose. And when you know initially that he is just a pawn, and that you are going to cut him loose ultimately, and that you're going to achieve your highest success and higher level success at a higher level with someone else, when you know that, then you don't have to have any anxiety when you're talking to that guy. You see what I mean? You're like, I'm playing you, you're not playing me. In a good way, from a place of justice, from a place of this is what you're due, to have your property returned to you in a pre-loss condition. You do not ask for a fire, right? But I can tell you, you had the option of which insurance company to choose when you first got insurance on this place. And you chose State Farm. And you expect for them to do what they promised to you that they would do if something like this ever, God forbid, ever happened. That's my take on it.
So far,
without getting into policy and coverage, you know what I mean? Like that's if it was my home, that's how I have to look at it. If this was my property, dude, everything I'm talking to you about is from that place in my heart.
So far, 40% of what they're suggesting is Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
You know? So far, 40%.
But we're moving in the right direction. That's how I look at it.
It's Mickey Mouse, like patch this.
But that's how I look at
Do
it.
this.
We're moving in the right direction, right? I mean, because on his latest draft, his latest estimate here, right? This was the estimate that I helped you with back on July 10th. This one was, okay, so based on his latest draft, August the 4th, right? He is at, oh, here it is. It's 233,053. That's where he's at right now. He's at 233,053. And in his estimate, he's got open items, like bid items and open items that could go quite a ways up, right? So we're moving in the right direction, because where did it start? Remember what your very first estimate was?
148.
148. So it went from 148 to 233 so far. Dude, we're moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah, it's not easy, but you know, it's just the time.
Did anybody tell you it was going to be easy?
I don't know, but it's just that I think that when something like this happens, you know, the insurance company should come and take care of you.
I agree.
It's it's loss on both sides.
The time that you invested into yourself, though, the education and stuff, and the due diligence you've done, was it worth it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
we're probably more like at 300 right there.
whatever you're doing, like helping people that are kind of lost, and you're like becoming a lawyer for them, right?
Careful with that, but yeah, no, I get it.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, don't do any law advice. Yeah, I know, it's like an advocate, I guess, what
Right,
you're trying to
you know.
say. Yeah, yeah, in a way, and it's just about. It's not even from. It's never about the policy. It's never about the law part of it, right? I try to encourage people to stay away from policy, stay away from the legal stuff, stay away from that kind of fight, right? Because then I feel like they have the advantage over you. If you're talking about legal stuff or policy stuff, then I feel like then they have the advantage because then they have more influence, more knowledge,
Public
right?
adjusters, when they come and they start the war,
Yes.
it's like public adjusters.
To me, that just gets dragged out farther, right? And so, if to me, I guess my advice is what I'm trying to get to is this: is that I think if people like yourself, right, and also contractors, the people that usually hire me, it's usually not property owners like yourself, but to come and give you the advice and be your expert consultant, usually it's the contractors that are hiring me to do that. So from a contractor's perspective and from a property owner's perspective, I think some good advice to take might just be, instead of making it so overly complicated to where we have to get into these legal fine points that we have to argue out each little micro point, I think that we might get a little bit further, maybe in shorter amount of time and easier, okay, just by going simpler and more basic. Like, in other words, just dumb it down. So let's forget about that complicated policy that you gave me, sir, Mr. Adjuster. What I want to talk to you about is the repair process. You know what I mean? Like, talk to me like I'm just a handyman, and we're talking about putting this door back together again. You see what I mean?
Correct.
What are the steps that you and I can agree on that it's going to take to accomplish that? Does that make sense? Because trust me, my friend, if you prove, even if you had to go down to Home Depot with the assembly of the door and stuff like that, if some kind of documentation, if you can prove that your method of repair, your way of bringing that door back together again, is the more accurate, is the better way of doing it than the adjuster is recommending, even though it's more expensive and you have that itemized down in a legible estimate, right? An itemized estimate. It's going to be approved, man. You don't have to threaten with the lawyer and say, well, you have to approve it because the policy says this. No, because the door's broken. Here's what it's going to take to fix it. And yeah, I understand that your recommendation is that I just need to do this and that. Well, I tried that. But I went down to Home Depot and they said, I can't do it that way. A lot of people assume that it can be done that way. That's a common misconception. I understand why you said that. I don't fault you for thinking that. But if you were the guy that had to actually go do it, you would then find out that ABC also has to be done.
What if they are insisting and they're saying, no, deal with it?
Yeah, no problem. We'll give that a shot. We'll give that a try. But listen, but you're not agreeing to it. You're just saying, I'll give it a try. I'll go back to the drawing board and give it a try because you're the boss. You write the instructions, I carry them out. You go and you try, and then you come back, you say, hey, I came to you a while back with an issue. You told me to try to do this. I tried it, didn't work. What should I do? But you're not talking to the original adjuster anymore, dude.
You spend money, right, when you're trying.
But listen,
and you spend time, right?
The advantage that you have is you have State Farm, meaning they're beating you up right now. They're making you go through a lot of work, like you said, a lot of time, to get from the 148 to the 233 when we're actually probably more like at 300 because of those open items and stuff, right? But it took you a lot to do that, a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of your energy to do that, right? But dude, if you had some jalopy company, you wouldn't be anywhere near 233 right now. You see what I mean? State Farm, the email address, I said this earlier, State Farm Fire Claims at statefarm.com. It's the same way for hail damage, hurricane damage, tornado damage, wind damage, water damage. It's the same email address, Fire Claims. They originated with Fire Claims, State Farm. They're famous for fire. And like I said, you have the choice of going with it. So they're gonna hold you to account on the little nickels and dimes, every little item, more than a lot of insurance companies would, but they'll never leave you hanging on it. They're the last company that's gonna say, nope. Now, if you had an issue like that, where you had to fight them, it would be more like, we're not paying for the fire at all. Because we don't find, we say, we think it's arson, we think you did it. You know what I mean? Or something crazy, you know what I mean? Or we think it's, we think it happened when you were with this other company, you didn't report it till later. It'd have to be something, usually, like wind damage or tornado or hail even. They'd say, oh yeah, you legit for sure have hail damage, but we don't show that there was any hailstorms in this area during the time that we covered you. So this hail probably happened when you were back with Liberty Mutual. Before you changed over. You see what I mean? It's a coverage issue to where they're cutting off the whole thing. We're not covering. Or it's a water damage claim. My cousin had something like this where it's a water damage in his basement. In Ohio, they have basements. But there's a technicality in the policy that said that if the source of the water came from outside, then they would cap the claim at a certain amount. But it didn't come from outside, but it didn't technically come from inside because it was in the wall cavity. And so the original adjuster came out and capped it, but he fought that, right? Just by the repairs, just by common stuff, and they proved. So, there's a lot of little technicality. If they're going to fight something, it's usually on a technicality like that, where they're saying it's a coverage issue. It's not even covered under your policy at all. It's not going to be after they've already opened up their checkbooks, $233,000, saying that every item in that estimate, hundreds of items in here, are justified, and then they're going to now somehow say, nope, we're going to court after already giving you No, that's why I told you from the beginning, dude, those who have the cash makes all the rules. That's why you always say, when they come up with an estimate like this, yeah, send the money, send the money, send the money, send the money. Do you agree? I don't agree, but send the money, send the money, send the money. They would love to have you say, oh yeah, I agree to it. No, I don't agree to anything. But send the money, send the money, send the money. And you're in such a beautiful position, dude. For any of my contractor people, if they see this, they have to know that you have a mortgage company, but your mortgage company is not named on your checks. They'd also know that on all the claims they deal with, the insurance company holds back recoverable depreciation, that they hold back a big chunk of the money that they hold back. They give you a bunch of money in the beginning, but they hold back this other part until you do the work, and then they release the money. So most people are in the position where the insurance company's holding back a big chunk of it, and whatever they are paying has the mortgage company on there. So the mortgage company makes you jump through hoops and only gives you a third of the money that's been issued so far, and they have to have their own inspections done to give you another third and the more third. And so you have no control. You have all these other people that you have to be accountable to and convince them to approve something for you to allow you to keep moving through the stages, right? You are blessed by the heavens, right? Because they gave you all the RCV up front, which many people don't realize State Farm usually will do, but you usually have to hire a contractor, which you didn't have to do. So you have all the control. So they gave you the whole amount, RCV. I know they're short, but at least they didn't hold back depreciation. They gave you all the RCV up front, issued it to you with no bank on it, okay? That means you, my man, are in control. You got the cash, all of it. Not most of it or some of it, all of it. You see what I mean? So the more you can keep doing that with the adjuster before you do cut him loose, if he goes further and further in and gives you more cash and more cash, he's just giving up leverage. So that when you do deal with the desk adjuster later on, you're just making a simple request for them that's easy for them to approve. They look at it like, oh yeah, it's a totally gutted out, destroyed house. There's plenty of room under the coverage. Looks legit to me. There's documentation. You know what I mean? You're thinking hard. It's going to be hard in your mind because you've not even got to that level yet of the supplemental stage yet. You're still dealing with the original Joe. You have no idea how easy it's going to be for you just because you have State Farm, quite frankly. Because a lot of times you have to deal with the same adjuster all the way through. You have State Farm, so you could just call the inside desk adjuster. Now, they could, to be clear, they could assign it to another adjuster to come out that'll take a fresh look at it. They could even, when they do that, assign it back to the original. That's rare, especially in a big market like this. We're in the outside of the Los Angeles market. It's one of the biggest markets there is in the country. It'd be hard for me to believe that they would assign it at the supplemental level back to the original. That usually happens in small markets like Kansas, way out in the middle of nowhere, you know. But hey, I've seen it done. I'm not going to say it won't happen. But even if that were to happen, that's why you keep everything professional with him, right? It goes to him and you're like, hey, try to do it your way. Here's the documentation and proof. Here's all you need to approve it. And by the way, remember I told you this before too. You're in a unique situation because you're the owner of the property. So my contractor clients can't really invoke this because they're not the owner. But the owner of the property can at any time tell the insurance company, I refuse to deal with this adjuster any longer. He's not allowed back on my property. You need to send somebody else. I demand to have another adjuster look at this, okay? Because you told me something out there in the driveway earlier. You said, he thinks I'm a piece of, crap. He doesn't understand. I've got a master's, this, that, yeah. And I said, but he didn't say he thinks you're that, does he? And you're like, no, but I can just tell. You know what I mean? So like, I've seen so many people and of different nationalities and cultures, like down in parts of Miami. I'm trying to think of the area down in Miami where it's like a big Cuban culture. A lot of my clients in that area would feel the same way. They were like, I feel like they just think I'm this and that. Different nationalities, different cultures, and some adjusters aren't, they have a prejudice in their mind or whatever. It happens, you know what I mean? It could very well, or it might not be anything to do with nationality or culture. It might just be, this guy's rubbing me the wrong way, he's trying to get over on me, you know what I mean? For whatever reason. That is the fallacy of insurance claims, is that it all comes down to really one adjuster's opinion on most of this. See, if you took 10 different adjusters and brought them out to this property and had them write out an estimate for all the repairs, they would all be completely different. They would be completely different. They'd be from 100,000 to a few 100,000, they would be completely all the way the same working for the same company. So it really does come down in that way to one specific adjuster's opinion. So just by getting that player off of the playing field, so to speak, that can do wonders. Just by having another adjuster come into it with fresh eyes, a fresh whole perspective. But what if that adjuster came in and said, I can't believe that guy gave you this much to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, so that could be the downside of that. That's why you always try to, if he's a pawn, the original field adjuster is a pawn, not really that consequential, he's only good for giving up the money that you can get from him, then I might as well just say it. Go ahead and milk him for all he's worth. You know what I mean? So to speak. I mean, I don't mean I want to do it accurately, and everything has to be legitimate. Every item, right? It should always be legitimate. But we can both agree that they're missing a lot of items. Let's get as many of those items that you're legitimately owed paid for by the original adjuster as you possibly can, which you're doing. You know what I mean? But at some point, brother, you got to stop dealing with him. All right? You got to stop dealing with him. Like, he doesn't agree with the odor control shellac. Once you get the certified industrial hygienist, you're going to do that. But at some point, you got to stop dealing with them and get on with the construction. Start building. Get the dumpster out here. Get the stuff going. Start running a job site with what you can, right? Because when the repairs are started, then you have more leverage, because then you can go back to the inside desk adjuster and say, I tried to do what the prescription says, and it's physically impossible, and I can prove it with what? Documentation. You see what I mean? And if as long as you do that, you follow the steps every time, approved, 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 approved. How many times? As many times as it takes until all the repairs are completed and paid for. Period, man.
Agree. Sounds good.
But your position from where you're at right now, your position of leverage, because of them not holding back money, the bank, you got them to pay extra money from 148 to the 233.
Well, Chad, look,
dude, you're way ahead of everybody at this point, though.
The way you're started is just, this, COVID,
Yeah.
And, it's, I just want to go home.
The current
I want to build
condition of the country.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to build my home. I want to go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Because right now and that's another position, I know what you mean, but that is actually, that disadvantage is actually another position of leverage. The fact that they have to pay for your ALE, additional living expenses, like they're paying for you to be in a different place right now. They want status updates. How long are we going to pay for you to be over here? You know what I mean? They're just leaking money. That's leverage too. But that being said, I don't want to lack empathy when I say that, because I know that can come across as cold. Because, yeah, bro, you're not in your home. I mean, your world's ripped apart. It's never been made right again after the fire, no matter where they put you up at.
For them, it's a standard procedure. For you, it's your life.
Yes.
For them, it's just work.
Yeah, just another number.
Yeah.
Just another file.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're building your house, it doesn't matter where you're building. It doesn't matter who's paying for it.
Yeah.
If it's coming from your pocket or if it's coming from somebody else's pocket. When you're building your house that you're gonna live in, you wanna do it correctly, right? That's why I always tell my friend, when you're buying a house, make sure it's not built by a company.
Yeah.
When they
always insist on just what you said. Like maybe sometimes you don't have a form of documentation to prove a point on a certain item anywhere in this estimate, okay? But it might be an item where you're like, no, I'm not going to settle for the house wrap being patched and stapled. I want to return to its pre-loss condition. You see what I mean? Like, you have that leverage also to invoke. And without me, I don't want to ever consult you about policy and coverage, so that's why I got to be careful about that. I just want to dumb it down and put it into the repair process.
Number one thing, once you have your foundation, that's number one thing that needs to be done correctly.
Yes.
Because within few years, and they go fast, if a drip every month goes in, if
the shell of the building, right?
Yeah. That's like the envelope that you have to do it correctly.
That's exactly right.
No matter outside or inside, if the walls are
the building envelope.
Yeah.
Whose channel you been watching? I'm just kidding.
No, but I mean that's the first thing.
Whose YouTube channel you been watching, man? Oh man, I love it. I think you're in an incredible position myself, quite frankly. I think it's just, but you never having been through this being your first time, it can't possibly seem like that though, that you're in a position of strength, But you really are. You really are, man.
I guarantee if that's...
I should put this on YouTube and ask the community, like the contractor community, what they think about that. I'll tell you what, Benny, if I did decide to put this on YouTube, and it kept your face, and it kept your face out, what do you think? Describing this guy's position so far. Is he in an enormous position of strength compared to most claims that we have to deal with? Oh my goodness, dude. Since maybe you don't believe me when I say that, you think I'm just trying to help you feel better or whatever, wait till you see what the contractor community has to say about that. Like I said, you must have been living a clean life. Good karma coming back to you, man, because you think it's bad, but when you get through this, man, I want you to remember this, and I'm glad it's being recorded. When you get through this, it will all be worth it. And it will be a struggle, it'll be blood, sweat, and tears, but it will have been all for good. What comes of it will be better than what you could have imagined that comes from it. And I think maybe even the experience, you might have an opportunity to bless someone else that you never would have had. Who knows? Only God knows that. But as far as your home that you end up with at the end of the day, it'll be much more valuable to you, even monetarily, than what it was before. you'll have the opportunity to make upgrades to it, for example, if you so choose, like you talked about doing that before, that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do as economically before as you will now. There's oftentimes opportunity that comes with destruction, you know, if you could find it. All things work together for good for those who love God. That's the way I look at that, but you know, you got to find a way to bring beauty out of this, you know.
I'm doing my best, bro.
Yeah, you are. You have been.
Everything.
Your due diligence, man, your work. Who in the world has the time, like what normal individual with a career and stuff, has the time to stop everything and start analyzing their insurance estimate that they never looked at one of these before in their life? You know what I mean? And trying to make sense of it, first of all, to even understand it, because it's almost like in a different language, right? Like, what does this mean? You know, like you were saying earlier, it says high grade on this, but you didn't know that there was an option for premium grade and custom grade and deluxe grade and all these other options there. You just know that, oh, high grade, that sounds good, because I know it was a pretty high grade item. You know, high grade is high grade, but you didn't know what else was available. So you did, my hat's off to you, dude. Like, massive respect to you. Like the things that you did, that you went in on YouTube, which is it's so millennial of you.
Like the countertop.
You know, to do that. Good for you.
They didn't have the installation. Well, he didn't have the installation, right? Just countertops. The countertops, I know for a fact, that's different. The installation is different. You know, you buy a slab, that's different. Fabrication is different, right? And
Yes. Yes.
You have a complete.
So remember I told you could have 10 adjusters come out here and all estimates will be different?
Just like
Same thing with contractors. You could have 10 GCs out here and their estimates would be totally different. We all know that. So the fact that you can get a contractor out here to give you $140,000, am I supposed to be impressed by that? The fact that you can make that happen? I could do that too, duh, duh, duh. Hey, give me an estimate, it's gotta be under 140. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't make it, that's just like totally irrelevant. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Adjuster. That was an interesting point. Thank you for that. So I don't see what it has to do with anything, you know, but thank you. I think you're playing it perfectly with your tone of voice that you're having with him.
Realistic.
You're holding him to account, but your tone of voice, your level of patience, the way that you're carrying yourself with him, you're winning. You're beating him, dude. He doesn't deal with people like you every day.
You know, Chad, I believe that every conflict that you, me, anybody gets into should walk out with either an ally or a friend. You know, we should not create enemies.
I agree. I agree.
We should have a conflict. It's a conflict. It's something that brings two people to very close range.
Yes. Because you think,
you can hug, right?
but because you carry yourself that way, because you live your life that way.
Right.
Like I said earlier, it's good karma coming back. It makes sense to me now.
So
why this is happening to you, and the good parts of it. I'm trying to figure out, like, how are you having it this good with those parts of it? And now it makes sense.
So my adjuster, I was upset at the beginning, and I called him. He felt that I let him know that I'm upset. But then once I started,
But you weren't screaming and yelling at him and calling him names?
Well, I wasn't screaming, but he could, from my tone, he could understand that.
Agitation and irritation.
Upset because this has to do with my home.
Your castle.
Yeah. And last time I talked to him,
The center of your world,
he said,
right?
Yeah, when he said
Yeah.
you can patch it, I said, well, I'm sorry. I want to see you build your house that way,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to let you. Because I'm going to be there to tell you to do it the right way. So anybody that builds something, that creates something, that does something should not do it for a temporary time. You know? I mean,
Building your house on sand that way, yeah.
if my family is going to live here, if something is not done properly, that mold starts to
No patchwork, right? No
3, 4,
patchwork.
5 years
Yeah.
later, it's my family that's gonna be here, right?
The foundation of your life, right?
If I wanna build something, and this is how I do all the time, I wanna do it as long as possible. I don't wanna say, it's good for 20 years. No,
Right.
because I come from a country that we had a big earthquake, and that's how communists built it. It's good for 30 years, we're gonna build it again.
Yeah.
We needed this amount of units for people, let's do it with, 5 times less the time, and what happened? Earthquake happened, it just did not last, we had house trouble there, So I don't look at it that way. We're gonna do it, I'd rather not have a very good-looking, expensive crown moldings.
Better to build your house on the rock.
I'd rather have healthy bones.
Better to build your house on the rock or on sand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Biblical, man. So,